Something that is actually fundamental to growing a successful business and doing work that has real impact in the world is rejection. The more rejection you get, the more successful you become. I want to give you a few tips that will help you to reframe rejection so you can get more of what you want as a result. So the first big idea, in order to get a yes, you have to get a no. And so the more no's that you can collect from people, the more likely it is that you're going to get a yes. If you understand that getting no is actually part of getting to yes, then it actually feels like progress rather than feeling like rejection. The second idea is welcome to the Creative Courage Podcast. My name is Matt Essam. If you are new here, welcome. This podcast is all about exploring the relationship between courage, creativity, and business. And so today I want to talk about something that is actually fundamental to growing a successful business and doing work that has real impact in the world, and that is rejection. Now, I believe that unless you play very small and you live a very, very mediocre life, there is no way to avoid rejection. Rejection is something that is inevitable. And I would even go as far as to say that the more rejection you get, the more successful you become. And so there are a handful of things that I've learned over the last 10 years of being coached and mentored by some extremely successful entrepreneurs that I think would be useful for you when it comes to the idea of rejection. So the first big idea, the concept that I learned really early on from a mentor of mine who was helping me grow my coaching business, was this idea that in order to get a yes, you have to get a no. And so he used to say that yes lives in the land of no. And so the more no's that you can collect from people, the more likely it is that you're going to get a yes. So the reason I think this is such an important concept is because if you understand that getting no, aka rejection, is actually part of getting to yes, then it actually feels like progress rather than feeling like rejection. And I know this might sound like positive thinking, like, oh, you have to get a no to get a yes, but actually think about it, right? Think about the things in your life that you've achieved. How many times along that road of achieving those things were you told no? Whether that was getting no from a prospective client that they didn't want to work with you, getting no from a price that you originally set many years ago that you now charge, whether it was getting no to a creative direction, like whatever it was, if you have been successful in some way in your life and business, you will have heard no on multiple occasions. So if you actually look at your own life and your own experience, you will see that no is part of getting to yes. So one of the things that I actually got set as a challenge in my early career was to collect as many no's as possible. And I was part of this kind of mastermind group. And one of the challenges was who can get 100 no's. And the first person to get to 100 no's wins a prize. And obviously, getting to 100 no's, inevitably you get a yes. And it was to demonstrate that if you can collect 100 no's, you're probably also going to collect some yeses. So the first idea is that in order to get a yes, we have to get to no. The second idea is easy to say, but slightly more difficult to practice. And it's this idea of reframing rejection so that rather than it just being a no and that's it, like it's black and white, this is either yes or it's no, we actually use that rejection, we use that no to learn. And so rather than just going like, okay, cool, this person didn't want to do this thing or they didn't allow me to do this thing, it's follow up and ask why. And so if someone says like no to a project proposal, and I know this isn't always possible, especially if you're in like a big pitch, clients don't always have the time to give the feedback. But one of the things you can do, and you can caveat this, I've tried this in the past, when somebody asks you to pitch for work, or if you are pitching for work, you can say, look, I'm happy to put a bid in and a proposal in for this. All I ask is that if you decide not to move forward with this proposal, you give us some feedback and some honest reasons why you decided not to go ahead with this, right? And so you can't always get feedback, but if you always ask for it, then some people will give you feedback. And if you see that rejection or that no as data, as information, like, oh, when I do this thing this way, it seems like a lot of people say no. And then when I got that yes, I was kind of doing it this way. Or was I doing it exactly the same both times? And it really just is a numbers game where if I ask this enough times, a percentage of people will say yes and a percentage of people will say no, because like that's also good information as well. It means that you just have to talk to more people and pitch to more people. And the people that say yes, you can say like, why did you say yes to this thing? And they'll tell you what they loved about it and what they were excited about. And you can add more of that stuff in. And the people that said no, some of those people will also give you feedback and you can decide, do I want to bring some of these things into this element or do I not? Right? So the second idea is that there's actually really valuable data in no. So no is actually a nugget of valuable information. And so if you can see that, like, oh, this person said no, and I can now extract some reasons why that will help me get more yeses, then again, you feel like you're making progress and you're moving towards something rather than just getting a no and then that's the end of the conversation. So the first thing is understanding that in order to get yeses, you have to get nos. The second thing is that no's contain really valuable feedback. And the third thing and the final thing that I want to share with you is this idea of detaching yourself from the word no. And what I mean specifically by that is understanding that your ideas or the thing that you are pitching isn't actually you. And without getting too philosophical, it's this idea that, you know, we are not our thoughts. We are not our ideas. We are not our feelings. They are just things that exist within us and we can share them and we can choose to ignore them or we can choose to buy into them, right? And so, you know, in Eastern philosophies more, there's this idea that you are separate to your thoughts. And this concept, if you've ever meditated, for example, that you just watch your thoughts go by. You don't have to, just because a thought comes in that says like, oh, you suck at this, doesn't mean you actually suck at this. That isn't you, right? It's like, that was a thought that just came into your head. And so if you can practice observing that thought, like, oh, look, there's that you suck at this thought again, and you just watch it pass, almost like a cloud in the sky, then it really helps you to detach and separate yourself from the thing that you're trying to get a yes for. So let's just say you have this new offer or this new idea that you're launching and you really want to get some people saying yes. If you can detach yourself from that idea and you can really see it as a kind of standalone thing, like, I'm putting this out into the world, but it's its own entity. And people are saying no to the idea. They're not saying no to me, right? Or people are saying no to the request. They're not saying no to me. And again, this is a really powerful concept because it allows you to move forwards rather than every time you get a rejection feeling like you're not good enough or this isn't working or maybe this idea is just terrible. Like, we kind of start getting into this headspace, right? I know I do for sure. And so it's this concept that the idea you put out or the request that you make is separate. It's a standalone thing. Just because you've come up with it and it's your idea or your request, it's not actually you that people are rejecting. It's the idea or the request or the proposal or whatever it is that you're asking for, right? Now, this becomes harder to do in your personal life because if you ask somebody out on a date or you want to be someone's friend or whatever it is and they reject you, then you're like, well, it must be me. But then again, I try and think about, they're not actually rejecting me as a person. They're rejecting their perception of a version of me that showed up in that moment of time. And it's possible that like another version of me, you know, depending on what mood I was in, depending on what's happened in my life, depending on what mood they're in and what's happened in their life and what's, you know, like there are so many different variables. They're not really rejecting you. And this is going to get really deep now. And this is kind of like some work that I'm personally doing myself. I believe the only person that can really reject you is you. Because the only person that really knows you and who you are and has been with you throughout your whole life from the moment you were born till now is you. So you're the only person that really knows yourself and who you are. So the only person that can really reject you is you. And so as long as you're not rejecting yourself, like who you really are, then everything else that you're putting out into the outside world, they're like things. And I don't know if it helps maybe to think about it as like an object. Like when you put this idea out, it's like a car key, for example, right? And you're like putting this car key out into the world for people to judge. People are judging this car key like it came from your mind and it was your idea. And again, I know with creative work, this is very difficult to do because you've created it. It feels like your baby, and I could do a whole episode on that. And you've got people like Rick Rubin that talk a lot about this. And, it's a very, very big topic about detaching from your creative work. But just in terms of ideas and rejection, the ability to separate yourself, like who you are, from the requests that you're making and the ideas that you have are very, very powerful. So they are the 3 things that I believe can change your relationship with rejection. There's also a little book that I want to recommend, and it's called Rejection Proof. And it's this idea of kind of getting rejection out of your system and getting comfortable with it, basically. I really believe if you feel uncomfortable with rejection, I really believe the more comfortable you can get with rejection, the more successful you are, because in general, you'll make more requests, you'll make more offers, you'll ask more. And just by default, you're either going to learn why people are saying no, or you're going to get more yeses because you're asking more. And so they are the 3 things that can change your relationship with rejection. Number 1 is this idea that in order to get to yes, you have to go through no. So you have to collect no's. And the more no's that you can collect, the more successful you will be. Number 2 is getting feedback from no's. So not just taking them as a black and white answer, but actually trying to work out why someone said no and actively requesting that feedback and getting good at asking for that feedback. And then number 3 is being able to detach yourself from the idea or the request and not feel like people are rejecting you personally, but they're just rejecting the idea or the thing that you're asking for. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. If you are on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, just search for Matt Essam, E-S-S-A-M, and send me a message. Say, hey, I listened to this episode. I love hearing from people who have listened. I love hearing their insights. It's great. It keeps me motivated to keep doing these episodes. So connect with me. And if you enjoyed this episode, then please share it with a friend and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. You've been listening to the Creative Courage Podcast, and my name is Matt Essam.